Welcome to Stoic Psyche Wisdom. Today, I want to challenge everything you think you know about attraction, strength, and the way women perceive men. Have you ever noticed that it's not the loudest man in the room who wins her attention? It's not the one desperately trying to impress, not the one who fills every silence with empty words, not the one constantly performing for approval. No. The man who captivates her is often the one who does something far more powerful. He says very little. He sits calmly, observes silently, and carries himself with a quiet confidence that demands attention without asking for it. His silence is not emptiness. His silence is presence, and women notice it. But here's the truth you may not have fully understood yet. Women fall for men who stay silent, not because silence is some trick, not because it's a manipulative game, but because silence is power. It signals strength. It shows control. It radiates security. It is the language of men who do not need to prove themselves because they already embody what others are searching for. And if you think this is simply about attraction, you're mistaken. Silence goes deeper than that. Silence is the foundation of inner discipline, emotional strength, and personal authority. It's not just about women being drawn to you. It's about becoming the kind of man who doesn't need to chase validation, because he already possesses everything within himself. In today's video, I will break this down for you in a way you have never heard before. Together, we'll explore the ancient wisdom of Stoicism, modern psychology, and timeless human behavior. You will see why silence creates mystery, why it commands respect, why it carries more weight than endless words, and why it reveals the truth of others far more than any interrogation could. By the end of this, you'll understand not just why women fall for men who stay silent, but why silence itself is one of the greatest forms of power you can master in life. So, stay with me, breathe deeply, open your mind, and let's step into the wisdom of silence. Chapter 1. Silence Creates. Mystery. Human beings are naturally drawn to the unknown. This has been true for thousands of years, across every culture and every age. Mystery is one of the greatest forces of attraction, not just in romance, but in every area of life. Think about the stories that endure across centuries, the myths of gods, the legends of warriors, the tales of kings and conquerors. Why do they fascinate us? Because there is always an element of the unknown, something not fully revealed, something that makes us wonder, imagine, and search for more. Now, translate this into human relationships. Imagine two men. The first one reveals everything: his thoughts, his feelings, his intentions, his fears, his past, his plans. He lays it all out, leaving nothing to be discovered. At first, it may feel honest, but soon it becomes predictable. There are no layers left. There is no discovery. The story ends too quickly. The second man is different. He speaks when he needs to, but never excessively. He shares enough to connect, but not everything at once. He doesn't rush to explain himself. He doesn't reveal his entire life story in a single conversation. He allows space. He allows silence. He allows curiosity to do its work. Who do you think she will keep thinking about when the night ends? Who will occupy her mind long after the conversation is over? It will not be the man who revealed everything. It will be the man who left space for her imagination to wander, the man whose silence whispered louder than another man's endless words. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is a canvas. And here's the secret. When you stay silent, she starts painting on that canvas with her own thoughts, her own curiosity, her own imagination. That's why silence creates mystery. Because mystery isn't what you tell her. It's what she feels when you don't tell her everything. The Stoic Parallel. The Stoic philosophers understood this principle long before modern psychology gave it a name. Marcus Aurelius, in his private meditations, wrote about restraint, not revealing too much, not scattering your energy in every direction. Epictetus advised his students, "Be mostly silent or speak merely what is necessary." This wasn't just about being disciplined. It was about maintaining strength. A man who talks endlessly is like a fortress with its gates wide open. A man who chooses silence is like a fortress whose walls are strong, whose gates only open when necessary. From a distance, such a fortress inspires awe. People wonder, what's inside? What power is hidden within those walls? That is the power of mystery. And mystery cannot exist without silence. Psychological insight, modern psychology, backs this up. Studies on attraction show that people are more interested in what is uncertain than in what is fully known. The uncertainty principle in human behavior suggests that when we don't have all the information, our minds keep working to fill in the gaps. We obsess. We replay interactions in our heads. We wonder. In dating, this is incredibly powerful. If you reveal everything about yourself too soon, you rob her of the opportunity to imagine, to discover, to unfold the story slowly. But when you remain calm, composed, and strategically silent, she starts thinking about you when you're not there. Your absence becomes louder than another man's presence. A story. To illustrate, picture this. A woman attends a dinner party. There are 10 men in the room. Most of them are talking loudly, competing for attention, telling stories, cracking jokes, showing off. But there is one man, sitting quietly, listening, speaking only when necessary. When he does speak, it is brief, thoughtful, and deliberate. He doesn't try to impress. He doesn't try to dominate. At the end of the night, which man do you think she goes home thinking about? It's not the one who tried the hardest. It's the one who revealed the least. The one whose silence left space for curiosity. The practical lesson. If you want to create mystery, don't overshare. Don't feel the need to explain every action. Don't reveal every plan. Allow her to wonder. Allow her to discover you slowly. Silence isn't about withdrawal. It's about leaving space for intrigue. Because here's the truth. What is known becomes ordinary. What is unknown becomes unforgettable. And silence, when mastered, is the key that keeps you unforgettable. Chapter 2. Silence shows. Self-control. One of the greatest illusions in our world today is that constant talking equals connection. That filling every pause in a conversation keeps interest alive. That silence is awkward, uncomfortable, and even dangerous. But this is not true. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is discipline. And when a man knows how to stay silent at the right time, he demonstrates one of the rarest and most attractive qualities in existence: self-control. Why most men fear silence. Think about the average man today. He goes on a date, sits across from a woman, and the moment there is a pause in conversation, he panics. He thinks, if I don't keep talking, she'll lose interest. If I don't impress her, she'll get bored. If I don't explain myself, she'll think something is wrong. So what does he do? He fills the air with noise. He talks about his job, his hobbies, his past, his plans, his achievements. He explains, he justifies, he overcompensates. He thinks words are keeping her interested, but in reality, he is draining his own power. Why? Because he is showing that he cannot handle silence. And a man who cannot handle silence is a man who cannot handle himself. The Stoic understanding of restraint. The Stoics knew this truth well. Epictetus often reminded his students that restraint is not just about physical control, but about mastery of the tongue. He said, "Nature gave us one tongue and two ears so that we may listen more than we speak." To the Stoics, words were not to be wasted. Every word carried weight, and every moment of silence carried purpose. A man who spoke less was not lesser. He was greater, because his discipline gave his words power. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, wrote that, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." Silence is the proof of that calm mind. It shows that you do not need to prove yourself constantly. You do not need to perform. You do not need to dominate every conversation. You are at peace with restraint. And restraint is strength. Modern psychology. Restraint as power. Modern psychology confirms what the Stoics already knew. Self-control is one of the most highly respected traits in a human being. Research shows that people who demonstrate restraint, whether in emotions, speech, or actions, are seen as more reliable, more powerful, and more trustworthy. Why? Because restraint signals mastery. It shows that you are not a slave to impulses. You are not controlled by nerves. You are not desperate to fill silence with meaningless chatter. You are in control. This is why women are drawn to men who stay silent when most men panic. Because silence in the face of social pressure is rare, and anything rare is valuable. An example of weakness versus strength. Imagine two men during a disagreement. The first man reacts immediately. He argues, raises his voice, tries to win the battle with words. He defends himself against every accusation, tries to explain every detail, and cannot stand the thought of being misunderstood. The second man listens. He does not rush to respond. He remains calm. His silence is not passive. It is controlled. When he does speak, his words are measured and deliberate. Which man looks stronger? Which man will earn more respect? It is not the one who lost control by rushing into endless words. It is the one who showed discipline by choosing silence. Warrior's lesson. Miyamoto Musashi history gives us countless examples of this principle. One of the most famous warriors of all time, Miyamoto Musashi, undefeated samurai, strategist, and philosopher, often used silence as a weapon. In his duels, Musashi would sometimes arrive late, keeping his opponent waiting in uncertainty and silence. By the time he arrived, the other man's nerves were already frayed, his focus broken, his strength weakened. Musashi understood that silence combined with patience was not emptiness but strategy. He wrote in the Book of 5 Rings that timing and restraint were more powerful than force alone. To speak less, to wait longer, to control your reactions. This was the path of mastery. And in relationships, the same is true. The man who can sit in silence without fear shows the kind of control that women instinctively respect. Why silence? Signals. Security. Here's a truth many men overlook. Women are not just listening to what you say. They are watching how you respond. When you rush to fill silence, you reveal nervousness. When you cannot sit quietly, you reveal insecurity. When you over-explain yourself, you reveal a lack of confidence. But when you stay silent calmly, you reveal something rare. You reveal security. You reveal that you are not desperate for approval. You reveal that you are comfortable in your own presence, and that comfort makes her feel at ease around you. This is why silence is not awkwardness. It is confidence. The practical application. So how do you practice this? How do you make silence your ally instead of your enemy? Pause before responding. When someone asks you a question, don't rush. Take a breath. Gather your thoughts. Answer deliberately. This shows control. Do not fear. Pauses. In conversations, allow natural pauses. Don't fill them with nervous chatter. Let the silence exist. Most people will rush to fill it, but not you. Your calmness will make the silence powerful. Listen more than you speak. Practice listening with presence. When she speaks, don't think about what you'll say next. Just listen. Your silence here is a gift. Avoid over-explaining. Not. Everything needs justification. Not every action requires an explanation. Sometimes silence is the strongest answer. The closing truth of this chapter. Most men fear silence because they think it makes them invisible. But the opposite is true. Silence makes you visible in a way words never can. Because when you show restraint, when you stay calm in silence, when you prove that you are not ruled by nerves or desperation, you separate yourself from the masses. Silence is not weakness. It is the ultimate demonstration of self-control. And self-control is the foundation of respect, attraction, and true power. Chapter 3. Silence gives words. Wait, words are powerful. They can build kingdoms, inspire armies, comfort the broken, and ignite revolutions. But here's the paradox. When words are overused, they lose their value. Think about money. When there is too much of it circulating without discipline, inflation happens. The currency loses its strength. The same happens with words. The more a man talks without measure, the less impact his voice carries. But when a man uses silence as his foundation and speaks sparingly, with precision, depth, and calmness, his words become rare. And what is rare becomes valuable. This is why silence gives your words weight. The problem with endless talking. Most men believe that if they keep talking, they will be remembered. They think volume equals influence. They think if they throw enough words into the air, some of them will stick. But this is false. The truth is, when a man speaks constantly, people stop listening. His voice becomes background noise. His opinions blur into the chatter of the crowd. You've experienced this yourself. Think of someone you know who never stops talking. Do you remember their words? Or do you remember the noise? Chances are you remember very little because nothing stood out. Now, think of someone who speaks less often, but when they do, every word lands with impact. You remember their words. Why? Because silence framed them, and the silence gave those words weight. The Stoic perspective on words. The Stoics understood this principle with great clarity. Epictetus taught his students, "Let silence be your general rule, or say only what is necessary and in few words." Seneca warned against endless speech, noting that the wise man speaks not to impress but to teach, not to fill silence but to reveal truth. Marcus Aurelius himself, though emperor of Rome, with the power of armies and senators at his command, filled his meditations with reminders to remain measured in speech. His words were powerful not because they were abundant, but because they were precise. They knew that silence was not just the absence of sound. It was the guardian of meaning. Psychology of rare words. Modern psychology provides evidence for what the Stoics taught. There's a concept in communication theory called scarcity value. The rarer something is, the more value we place on it. This is why diamonds, gold, and rare artifacts are treasured, not because they are inherently magical, but because they are scarce. The same principle applies to words. If you speak less, your words become rare. People lean in when you speak. They pay attention. They remember. This is especially powerful in relationships. A man who talks endlessly about his feelings, his plans, his intentions may feel he is connecting, but in reality, he is devaluing his own words. A man who speaks less, but ensures his words carry thought and strength, creates deeper impact. She listens. She remembers. She respects. Historical example: Abraham Lincoln. Let's step into history for a moment. Abraham Lincoln, one of the most respected leaders in history, understood this principle deeply. At a time when political speeches often went on for hours, Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address in less than 3 minutes. Just 272 words. Yet those words are remembered to this day. Why? Because they were framed by silence, delivered with restraint and crafted with precision. Lincoln understood that words become weighty, not by length, but by silence and thought. Behind them, a warrior's example. Musashi. Again, Miyamoto. Musashi, whom we discussed earlier, also applied this principle. In his teachings on strategy, he emphasized that every strike, every move, every word must be deliberate. To waste energy, to waste motion, to waste speech, this was weakness. In his silence, people projected power onto him, and when he did speak or act, the weight was undeniable. This is the art of giving words weight, not by speaking more but by speaking less with greater intention. A story. To illustrate, picture a man in a business meeting. 10 people are speaking over one another, throwing opinions, arguing, and debating. One man sits silently, listening, observing, not rushing to enter the chaos. Finally, after everyone else has exhausted themselves, he speaks a single sentence. That sentence changes the direction of the entire discussion. Why did it matter? Because it was rare. Because it came after silence. Because everyone leaned in when he finally opened his mouth. Now, imagine the same principle in attraction. 10 men are talking loudly at a social gathering, competing for attention. One man remains calm, silent, speaking only when he chooses. When he finally says something, brief, thoughtful, deliberate, she notices, she remembers, she wonders. The silence framed the words. The silence made them weighty. Practical applications. So how can you, as a man seeking to embody Stoic wisdom, use this principle in daily life? Pause before speaking. Before responding, take a brief pause. This not only gives you time to think, but it also makes others lean in, waiting for your words. Speak less, mean more, cut out filler words. Speak in shorter, stronger sentences. When you speak, make it count. Value. Listening. Over talking. Spend more time listening. Your silence makes the other person feel heard, and when you finally respond, your words feel far more meaningful. Leave. Them wanting more. Don't reveal everything in one conversation. Speak with intention and allow curiosity to build. The closing truth of this chapter: words can be swords, but a sword swung constantly at everything soon dulls. The true master knows when to keep the blade sheathed. Your silence is what sharpens your speech. Your restraint is what gives your voice power. The man who speaks endlessly is forgotten. The man who speaks rarely but with depth is remembered. Because silence gives words weight, and a man whose words carry weight is a man who shapes the world around him. Chapter 4. Silence reveals her true self. Silence is not only about you. It is not only about your presence, your self-control, or your discipline. Silence is also a mirror, and when you remain calm and quiet, that mirror reflects the truth of the other person. This is one of the most overlooked powers of silence. It reveals more about others than it does about you. Especially in relationships, silence becomes a tool of clarity. It allows you to see someone for who they truly are, not for who they pretend to be when distracted by your constant words. Why people reveal themselves in silence. Most men believe that if they want to understand a woman, They must ask endless questions, demand answers, or analyze her every word. But often, the truth is revealed not through interrogation, but through stillness. When you are silent, the pressure to fill the space shifts onto her, and in that space, she reveals herself. She tells her stories, shares her feelings, shows her values. She reveals what she fears, what she desires, and how she truly thinks. Because silence is not emptiness. Silence is an invitation, and most people cannot resist filling it. The Stoic approach to observation. The Stoics were masters of this principle. They understood that to know others you must first learn to observe without interference. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Learn to read carefully what is in another's soul. Be intent on the things that lie beneath." Notice what he said. Read carefully. Not interrogate, not force, not demand. Read, and you cannot read while you are speaking. You can only read in silence. Epictetus also taught his students to remain calm in silence, because when you don't rush to speak, others will eventually reveal their true character. Their actions, their body language, their words. All of it surfaces when you allow stillness. This was not only a social skill, it was a survival skill. The ability to remain silent and observe allowed the Stoics to judge who could be trusted and who could not. Psychology of self-revelation. Modern psychology confirms this. Research on communication shows that people reveal the most about themselves when the listener is silent and attentive. Why? Because silence creates a psychological vacuum. Humans are uncomfortable with it. In fact, studies show that in conversations, most people will begin to overshare if the other person remains silent long enough. They reveal their motivations, their insecurities, and even secrets they hadn't planned to share. So when you are silent, you don't just conserve your own power. You extract truth from others. A story of silence in action. Imagine this. You sit across from a woman on a date. You are calm. You are composed. You are not rushing to impress her with stories. Instead, you listen. You ask a thoughtful question, and then you remain silent. At first, she may give a surface-level answer, but when you stay silent, nodding, holding steady eye contact, she continues. Soon, she is talking about her childhood, her dreams, her fears, her world view. And here's the key. While other men reveal themselves too quickly and try to dominate the conversation, you are doing something rare. You are allowing her to reveal herself. And in doing so, you gain clarity. You see not only her beauty, but her truth. A real-life example. Negotiation. This principle extends far beyond attraction. In the world of negotiation, silence is considered one of the most powerful tools. Negotiation experts teach that when you make an offer, the most effective move afterward is silence. Do not rush to explain. Do not fill the gap. The other side will often start talking, revealing more than they should, sometimes even negotiating against themselves. Why? Because silence pressures the other person to reveal their hand. The same applies to relationships. By staying calm and silent, you allow the other person to reveal their intentions, whether genuine or false. Why this matters in relationships. Many men are blindsided in relationships because they talk too much and listen too little. They reveal everything about themselves, but never notice the red flags in her behavior. They are too busy performing to see the truth, but when you remain silent, you see. You see how she reacts when you don't chase. You see how she fills the silence. You see her values in her stories. You see her real self, unfiltered. This is why silence is not just attractive. It is protective. It protects you from illusion. It gives you the clarity to see who she really is before you commit. The practical lesson. So how can you use silence to reveal truth in your own life? Ask, then listen. Ask thoughtful, open-ended questions. Then remain silent. Resist the urge to interrupt. Let her speak. Notice body language. In silence, watch her actions. Does she avoid eye contact? Does she fidget? Does she lean in? Silence reveals what words cannot hide. Be comfortable with pauses. Don't rush to fill gaps. Let the silence breathe. People often reveal more when they feel the need to fill space. Observe patterns, not just words. Words can deceive, but consistent actions revealed over time in silence tell the truth. The closing. Truth of this chapter: silence is not passive. It is active awareness. When you stay silent, you gain clarity. You see others for who they really are, not for who they pretend to be. You discover truths that endless words would have hidden. In relationships, this clarity is priceless. Because, while other men lose themselves in noise, you stand still in silence, and in that stillness, the truth reveals itself. Chapter 5. Silence radiates. Security. Women are naturally drawn to men who make them feel safe, not just physically but emotionally. When you remain silent, composed, and steady, you send an unspoken message. I can handle life. I can handle you. I can handle myself. Consider this. In a room full of men, the loudest one rarely commands the deepest respect. The one cracking jokes, raising his voice, or constantly needing validation might draw temporary attention. But the man sitting calmly, listening, occasionally speaking with conviction, he radiates an energy of security that pulls others in without effort. Women feel this instinctively. Loud men can entertain, but silent men reassure. She doesn't just want excitement. She wants a foundation, and silence offers her that, because a man who is at peace with silence is at peace with himself. Historical lens Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, rarely indulged in long speeches. His power wasn't displayed through constant chatter, but through his ability to endure, reflect, and respond with wisdom only when necessary. That calm, stoic presence created a sense of unshakable authority. Women, then and now, are drawn to this type of grounded energy. Modern psychology studies in nonverbal communication suggest that calm silence and steady body language reduce anxiety in others. A man who doesn't feel the need to constantly fill the air reassures a woman's nervous system. He becomes an anchor in her emotional storm. Chapter 6. Silence protects energy. Every word you speak costs energy. Every argument you entertain drains focus. Every unnecessary explanation chips away at your inner power. Men who understand the value of silence don't waste their energy on trivial things. They conserve it for what matters. And women notice this. A man who does not react to gossip, petty drama, or meaningless provocation communicates strength without saying a word. She thinks, if he doesn't waste words on small battles, maybe he has energy reserved for the big ones. Protecting me, building his vision, guiding his path. Example from Stoic history: Epictetus, born a slave and later a Stoic teacher, often reminded his students, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." His silence wasn't weakness, it was energy management. He chose when to use his voice. That choice made his words matter. Takeaway: silence is not passive, it is active conservation of energy. The less you scatter your words, the more powerful your presence becomes. Chapter 7. Silence as emotional control. There is one thing women test: consciously or unconsciously, in men. Emotional control. If she shouts and you shout louder, she sees you as unstable. If she teases you and you react defensively, she sees you as insecure. If she challenges you and you remain calm, she sees you as strong. Silence during emotionally charged moments communicates mastery. It shows that your emotions do not control you, you control them. Modern psychology. Neuroscience confirms that silence helps regulate the amygdala, the brain's center for fear and reactivity. By staying silent in moments of conflict, you short-circuit your instinct to lash out and instead allow higher reasoning to take over. Women feel safer with men who can do this. Real-world application. The next time she tries to pull you into a heated argument, resist the urge to fill the air with words. Breathe, stay silent. Let her emotional wave crash against your calmness. More often than not, she will calm down herself and admire your control afterward. Chapter 8. The Stoic Way of Silence to the Stoics. Silence was not just absence of speech, it was a discipline, a practice of self-mastery. Marcus Aurelius journaled his thoughts in silence each night rather than burdening others with them. Seneca advised avoiding unnecessary chatter because it weakens the mind. Epictetus reminded students to let silence be your goal for most things. For them, silence wasn't emptiness. It was presence. A man silent in the right moments wasn't avoiding life, he was conquering it from within. Women, whether they know Stoicism or not, sense this. The man who can remain silent is practicing ancient strength. Chapter 9. Modern Psychology of Silence in Attraction. Modern research in psychology and communication offers fascinating insights into why silence attracts. The scarcity principle. We value what is rare. A man who rarely speaks makes every word scarce and valuable. The mystery effect. Studies show people are more curious about individuals who reveal less. Silence makes a man's inner world intriguing. Confidence. Projection. Silence signals. You don't need approval. Confidence is magnetic. Non-verbal dominance. Silent men often hold stronger posture, steadier eye contact, and calmer body language. These nonverbal cues are more powerful than words. For women, these psychological factors trigger both curiosity and attraction. She feels there's something in you she must discover. Chapter 10. Practical Applications in Daily Life and Relationships. How can you apply silence today? In conversations, listen more. When you do speak, make it deliberate. In arguments, pause. Don't let emotion dictate your words. On dates, allow silence to breathe. Don't rush to fill every gap. Let her lean into the silence. In texting, don't reply instantly. Silence builds anticipation. At work, use silence in meetings. Speaking less but with impact positions you as a leader. Silence is a tool. Use it with wisdom. Chapter 11. Real-life stories and lessons. The businessman. A CEO I once knew rarely spoke in meetings. When he did, everyone leaned in. His silence was his authority. The soldier. In war, silence means survival. The calm soldier inspires trust. The panicked one endangers all. The lover. A man once told me he sat in silence with his wife every night for years, simply holding hands. That silence built a bond no words could match. These are not accidents. Silence shapes presence, and presence shapes attraction. Final reflections. Stay calm, stay silent, stay powerful. Silence is not emptiness. It is a container of strength, mystery, and security. It is the soil in which respect, attraction, and love take root. Women fall for men who stay silent not because silence is cold, but because silence is powerful. It communicates mastery, control, and depth. Remember this: a weak man uses many words to prove himself. A strong man uses silence to let the world prove him. Stay calm. Stay silent. Stay powerful.